So verse 36, now we have the setup for the second missionary journey. It says, after some days, Paul said to Barnabas, let us return and visit the brethren in every city in which we proclaim the word of the Lord and see how they are. So see how they're doing in effect. So Paul here is concerned about the spiritual welfare of these new converts, these believers. Now we have a conflict that arises here. Right? We've looked at this before. It says Barnabas wanted to take John, who was also called Mark, along with them also. Now what happened previously? Do you remember what happened here with John? He left them. That's right. On the first missionary journey, and we don't know why, but they got right into the early part of the missionary journey, and John apparently got homesick, missed Mama's homemade bread or something, and he bailed out. He left Paul and Barnabas on the missionary field. And apparently, Paul did not like that. Now apparently, Barnabas here was a man of second chances. Now, I think Paul was too. But I think Paul was the kind of guy that you had to prove yourself. I think there were personality differences here between Paul and Barnabas. So it says here that Barnabas wanted to take John, called Mark, along with them also. Now notice verse 38. But Paul kept insisting that they should not take him along, who had what? Deserted them in Pamphylia and had not gone with them to the work. So what's Paul concerned about here? Paul is concerned that they're going to get halfway out there into the missionary field and John's going to do what? He's going to bail out on them again. Because if he did it once, and maybe Paul's thinking, hey, I love the guy, but if he hasn't proven himself to me, then I don't know that I want to take him out there again, because I don't know that I can trust him. Now, I'll be honest. I'm torn. I'm really torn. I can look at Barnabas and I can say, wow, what a man of grace. Man of, willing to take John Mark here, give him a second chance. I offered to take him on. And say, I'm about that. I understand that. Because, don't we mess up? Don't we need grace? Don't we need second chances? And sometimes third and fourth? Don't we? Or am I just talking about myself?
No.
We do. And I'll be honest, I'm a Barnabas. I can forgive. And I can look at people and I can say, yeah, you messed up. Second chance. I've got a third and fourth in my pocket. I can do that. But I can relate to Paul too. Because I've been burned. Any of you ever been burned? You ever had anybody fail you? You ever had anybody make a promise to you? Promise to be there? And then they let you down? They didn't do what they said they would do? And when you're trying to make it through life, don't you have to rely on people? Don't you need people to be faithful? Don't you need people to do what they say they'll do? And when they don't do it, doesn't that just kind of set wrong with you? Doesn't that make you a little less trusting with the next person? Doesn't that make you evaluate people a little differently? Sure it does. So there's a part of me that looks at Barnabas and says, I can understand that. And there's a part of me that looks at Paul and says, you know what, Paul, I understand that. Because I've been burned. And that guy burned me. I ain't trusting him. I ain't trusting that guy. He did me wrong. I'm not going to trust him again. Right? And the older we get, the more experience we get in life, we can relate to both of these people. And there's times where I'm a Barnabas, and there's times where I'm a Paul. I think maybe I'm a little more towards Barnabas, but it just depends on what day. What?
No, I'm just messing with you.
Don't you do that? So, but can't you relate to both? Sure. I mean, come on. I think anybody can. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, what day of the week is it, right? But Paul kept insisting that they should not take him along who had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not gone with them to the work. In verse 39, did they resolve their conflict? No. In effect, they had a divorce. And there occurred such a sharp division that they separated from one another. And Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed away to Cyprus. And by the way, he started his own ministry. He started his own ministry. But Paul chose Silas and left, being committed to the brethren and to the grace of the Lord. And being committed by the brethren to the grace of the Lord. And the phrase there, to the grace of the Lord, it's literally to the Lord who is gracious. To the gracious Lord. And isn't the Lord gracious? You bet. And so even though these men could not agree, and even though they had such a heated debate, and even though they separated and they each chose their own person, the Lord was gracious with both of them. And they both wound up going their own separate way, and they both wound up having ministries that were both effective to the Lord in their own right. Isn't that interesting? And then it says, and he was traveling through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches. So Paul goes off with Silas, and Barnabas takes Mark with him, and sails away to Cyprus. And so the Lord uses them both, even though they couldn't agree with each other at this point. Now we have other passages of Scripture in Corinthians that we've looked at before where there's every indication that Paul and Barnabas became friends who worked together. That even Paul got along with John Mark. There's other references in the New Testament where they got along with each other. So it's not like this division was permanent. They were very amiable towards each other and complementary in future years of ministry.